Step into a world of power, intrigue, and incredible human resilience. This video will transport you back in time to the legendary Ottoman Harem, where ancient walls witnessed both tragedy and triumph, and where seemingly powerless women held the fate of a mighty empire in their hands. Are you ready to hear the story of Hurrem Sultan? From an unknown captive to the first legal empress, a woman who dared to break every rule, challenge supreme authority, and forever change the course of history? Turn off the lights, snuggle up under your blanket, and let our narration guide you into a world of mystery, drama, and unforgettable emotions. You'll witness silent battles, cunning conspiracies, and heartbreaking sacrifices made for love and power. Each chapter is a piece of the puzzle, revealing an untold secret, a captivating human facet. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to our channel so you don't miss any future historical adventures, and leave a comment to let us know where in the world you're enjoying this story from. The air was thick with the scent of jasmine and fear, a strange, intoxicating perfume that clung to your skin the moment you crossed the threshold of the Bab-es-Sadat, the gate of felicity. You felt the cold, smooth marble beneath your bare feet, each step echoing the finality of your departure from the known world. This wasn't the blissful entrance its name suggested. It was a descent into a gilded cage, a whispered legend brought to life. Suddenly, from a distant chamber, a blood-curdling scream tore through the serene silence, followed by the muffled thud of something heavy hitting the floor. Your heart hammered against your ribs, a frantic drum in the grand orchestra of the palace, and a chill, colder than the marble, snaked up your spine. You felt like a tiny insect, glittering and helpless, caught in a shimmering spiderweb, instinctively knowing that every delicate thread could be a death sentence. Just as quickly as it began, the scream vanished, swallowed by the labyrinthine silence of the harem, leaving only the unsettling echo of its horror in your mind. A stern-faced Kalfa, her eyes like chips of flint, gestured for you to follow, her silence more commanding than any shout. The opulent tapestries lining the corridors seemed to watch you, their woven eyes holding centuries of secrets. You brushed a hand against one, feeling the rough, intricate threads under your fingertips, a tangible connection to the countless women who had passed this way before, each a thread in the grand tapestry of the harem's history. This was no mere collection of women. It was a breathing entity, a living, pulsating heart of intrigue, power, and the desperate fight for survival. The air inside was heavy, warmer than the cool night outside, as if you'd stepped into a colossal glass sphere where every sound resonated with peculiar intensity. The plush Persian rugs underfoot were so soft you felt as though you were floating on clouds, a stark contrast to the rough earth of your homeland. You inhaled deeply, attempting to acclimate to the complex aroma of sandalwood, rose petals, and a faint hint of anxious perspiration, all blended with undeniable luxury. Your hand brushed against the intricately carved wall, feeling the gentle curves of the floral patterns beneath your fingertips. You noticed the tiny barred windows, like the harem's own eyes peering out at the world you just left behind. Was there any light from outside that could penetrate this place, or was everything ultimately consumed by its profound mystery? Every one of your footsteps reverberated in the hushed expanse, like the beat of a drum signaling a new beginning, or a silent, inevitable end. You were led to a hammam, a lavish bathing chamber where the air was thick with steam and the scent of rosewater. The warm, fragrant water enveloped you, washing away the dust of your journey, yet leaving an odd sensation of being marked, of dissolving into a larger collective identity. The water caressed your skin, a deceptive comfort, like a velvet glove hiding an iron fist. As older attendants gently scrubbed you with coarse loofahs, you observed the other newly arrived girls. Some looked resigned, their eyes dulled by fear. Others, with an almost feral glow, seemed to burn with a fierce ambition. Each, in her own way, was a flower in this gilded garden, blooming under the same sun, but already secretly vying for every ray of light, every drop of dew. After the bath, you were dressed in soft, silken garments that felt foreign against your skin, luxurious, yet subtly confining. The fabric, while beautiful, seemed to whisper tales of restrictive elegance, of bodies shaped to fit a certain mold. You were now part of the intricate, living mosaic of the harem, no longer just a captured girl, but a piece in a complex, unfolding puzzle. Your hair, still damp, clung to your neck, a stark reminder of your former life. You wondered how long it would take for the sense of this place to fully replace the lingering smell of the sea or the earth of your distant home. A stern-faced older woman, a Kalfa named Zainab, her features etched with years of observing the harem's relentless dance, approached you. Her eyes, though tired, held a sharp, knowing glint. "Here, child." Her voice was a low murmur, barely above a whisper. "Beauty is but a veil. What truly matters is what lies beneath." She didn't offer comfort, but a different kind of lesson. "We once had a girl, as radiant as the dawn, but she spoke too freely, wished too loudly. One morning, her bed was simply empty. Like a fleeting dream, she vanished without a trace. Her words were cold steel wrapped in silk, a stark warning delivered with the casualness of a lullaby. You felt a shiver, not from cold, but from the chilling realization that this world operated on unspoken rules, where a misstep could lead to silent obliteration. In this place, innocence was a luxury few could afford, and silence could either save you or utterly destroy you. You began to learn, not from books, but from observing. The subtle flick of a fan, the carefully placed jewel, the way a woman's head was tilted in deference, yet her eyes held a spark of defiance. These were the true languages of the harem. You saw how a seemingly simple gesture could convey contempt, how a forced smile could hide a venomous plot. You were given a small, sparsely furnished room, yet its very simplicity felt like a luxury compared to the grand, overwhelming halls. The quiet here was different, not the deep, peaceful silence of the countryside, but a loaded stillness, as if the very walls were holding their breath, listening. You traced the patterns on the intricate tiles of your chamber, feeling their coolness against your fingertips. These walls, seemingly just stone and mortar, seemed to have ears and eyes, whispering every secret, every conspiracy that had ever unfolded within their ancient embrace. As days bled into nights, you caught glimpses of the harem's inner sanctums, the tranquil inner gardens where water gently trickled from fountains, seems like an oasis, yet even there an invisible tension hung in the air. You saw the steam rising from the opulent hammams, heard faint laughter echoing from closed chambers, and smelled the sweet, heavy perfumes of the Sultan's favorites. The luxury was undeniable, overwhelming even, yet it was always accompanied by an undercurrent of confinement. Every gilded cage, no matter how beautiful, remains a cage. Lying on your plush mattress at night, staring at the unseen ceiling, you wrestled with the overwhelming reality of your new life. The whisper of the wind outside your window, normally a comforting sound, now seemed to carry the faint echoes of distant, forgotten cries. You wondered about the fate of the girl Zeynep spoke of. Would you, a mere speck of sand in this golden desert, rise to become a storm? Or would you forever be buried beneath the footsteps of destiny? Was this Hurrem truly a prison, or was it a gilded gateway to unimaginable power? Only time and your own unwavering spirit would tell in this intricate game of intrigue, power, and survival. The long journey, an endless blur of heaving seas and weary footsteps across vast lands, finally ended before the infamous Bab-i-Saadet, the Gate of Felicity. You, Alexandra Liskorska, a girl with fiery red hair that seemed to defy the somber palace walls, and eyes as green as a spring lake, stepped through its ornate archway, utterly unaware that this was the razor's edge between two lives. There was no felicity in that first breath, only a raw, almost electric jolt of overwhelming sensory input, and a bone-deep chill that permeated your young skin as it met the luxurious silks, the pungent musk of exotic perfumes, and the shimmering light of 1,000 fireflies suspended in the evening air. You were a rough diamond just unearthed, unpolished, yet already radiating a distinct brilliance, challenging every preconceived notion, a dazzling spark so bright even the blindest could not ignore it. You barely had time to register the cloying scent of jasmine before a sharp, muffled slap echoed from behind an ornate screen, followed by a choked gasp. Your gaze instinctively darted towards the sound. A serving girl, no older than yourself, stumbled out from the shadows, her cheek bright red, her eyes brimming with unshed tears that shimmered like fragile pearls. No one else reacted. The other attendants continued their duties with impassive faces, as if this silent violence was part of the very air you breathed here, a common occurrence in this so-called paradise. Your heart, already a frantic drum from the journey's end, now hammered with a new, terrifying rhythm: survival. You brushed a hand against one of the opulent tapestries, feeling the rough, intricate threads under your fingertips, a tangible connection to the countless women who had passed this way before, each a thread in the grand tapestry of the harem's history. This was no mere collection of women, it was a breathing entity, a living, pulsating heart of intrigue, power, and the desperate fight for survival. The air inside was heavier, warmer than the cool night outside, as if you'd stepped into a colossal glass sphere where every sound resonated with peculiar intensity. The plush Persian rugs underfoot were so soft you felt as though you were floating on clouds, a stark contrast to the rough earth of your homeland. You inhaled deeply, attempting to acclimate to the complex aroma of sandalwood, rose petals, and a faint hint of anxious perspiration, all blended with undeniable luxury. Your hand brushed against the intricately carved wall, feeling the gentle curves of the floral patterns beneath your fingertips. You noticed the tiny barred windows, like the harem's own eyes peering out at the world you'd just left behind. Was there any light from outside that could penetrate this place, or was everything ultimately consumed by its profound mystery? Every one of your footsteps reverberated in the hushed expanse, like the beat of a drum signaling a new beginning, or a silent, inevitable end. A wizened old servant, her eyes deep wells of weary experience, noticed your focused gaze on the retreating, tearful girl. She leaned close, her voice a dry whisper that seemed to evaporate into the heavy air, a rustle of ancient wisdom against your ear. Hear, child, beauty is but a veil. It fades like a desert mirage. What truly matters is what lies beneath. What truly lasts is a brain of steel and a heart that knows no fear. Remember, even the prettiest bird can be plucked if it cannot outwit the hunter. That warning, sharp and precise as a lightning bolt, struck your young mind, instantly illuminating the truth. This was no mere school for courtesans. It was a silent battlefield where every rule could be bent, every loyalty bought, and every whisper a potential weapon. And you, a small village girl, knew then that you would have to learn to fight or perish. Like a tiny sprout pushing through concrete, a defiant will began to root deep within you. You felt a tiny ember ignite deep within your core, not of fear, but of challenge. In that very moment, you vowed you would not be a fleeting blossom, destined to wither quickly in this gilded harem. Each day that followed, you absorbed everything like a parched sponge, from perfecting the intricate curtsy, a subtle art of deference that spoke volumes without a single word, to grasping every minute detail of Ottoman history. You strove for excellence. Your hands, once accustomed to the rough feel of flax and soil, now deftly handled fine silks and delicate brushes during calligraphy lessons. Every stroke of the brush was a silent prayer, a defiance against the chains that bound you. Your laughter, bright and unrestrained, often echoed through the hushed corridors, a curious anomaly in the harem's otherwise solemn atmosphere. Once, during a lesson on court etiquette, the elderly instructor, a stern woman with a perpetual frown, accidentally spilled a pot of ink onto her pristine white turban. A few girls giggled nervously, but your genuine, unforced laughter bubbled up, light and infectious. The instructor, initially annoyed, found herself cracking a rare, small smile, and you noticed the shift in her gaze, a flicker of something akin to reluctant fondness. This simple act of unbridled joy, so unlike the calculated composure of the other women, was precisely why they began to call you Hurrem, the joyful one, or the laughing one. You quickly realized that in this cutthroat world of endless rivalries, being different was not always a flaw. It could be an advantage, a secret weapon in plain sight. You began to listen not just to the words spoken in the common parlance, but to the whispers of the wind through the ornate corridors, the long, lonely sighs of favored concubines, and even the faintest rustle of silk from the Sultan's distant chamber. You understood that to survive, you needed more than mere beauty. You needed shrewdness, the ability to read people's unspoken intentions, and an unyielding will. From a mere captive, a piece of human chattel, you were slowly, deliberately transforming yourself into a pivotal player on the chessboard of destiny. And who would have thought that your life, that of a humble girl from a distant land, was destined to become one of the most dramatic chapters in Ottoman history? Each passing moment was a brushstroke on the canvas of your new identity, painting you into a formidable figure.
Your days blurred into a rigorous regimen of learning. You mastered the delicate art of Turkish embroidery, your fingers growing nimble as they wove intricate patterns that seemed to tell silent stories of your homeland, each stitch a tiny act of defiance against your circumstances. Calligraphy lessons taught you not just to write, but to wield the pen as a tool of expression, a silent scream or a tender confession on parchment, each character a whispered secret. You devoured every book placed before you, from the sacred texts of the Quran to ancient Persian poetry, each word a key unlocking new worlds within your mind. The knowledge you absorbed was a secret garden within your soul, a sanctuary where you could cultivate your thoughts away from the judging eyes of the harem. Every new piece of learning was a fresh breath of air in the stifling confines of the palace, a whisper of freedom in a gilded cage. The Grand Eunuch, a towering figure with eyes that seemed to miss nothing, often observed you. His gaze was like a sculptor's, assessing, calculating, but sometimes you thought you detected a flicker of something akin to approval. You learned to navigate the labyrinthine social circles of the harem, understanding that alliances, however fleeting, were crucial. You exchanged knowing glances with other girls who possessed a similar spark in their eyes, an unspoken acknowledgement of shared ambition. Sometimes an older attendant, seeing your diligence, would offer a small piece of advice, a tiny nugget of wisdom gleaned from years of observing the rise and fall of favor. These crumbs of wisdom were more valuable than any jewel, for they were the breadcrumbs on the path to survival, each one leading you further into the maze. You began to notice the subtle hierarchy among the concubines. The older ones, with their jaded eyes, often shared cautionary tales, not with malice, but with a weary resignation. "The Sultan's favor," one whispered to you during a quiet afternoon in the ornate gardens, her voice barely audible over the gentle splash of the fountain. "The Sultan's favor is like the morning mist, beautiful, fleeting, and it can vanish before you even realize it's gone. And when it vanishes, sometimes so do you." You understood that she wasn't just talking about love. She was talking about power and its profoundly ephemeral nature. Her words were a chilling wind, reminding you that even the sunniest days could turn cold in the harem, a sudden winter in a perpetual summer. Yet despite the ever-present undercurrent of tension, there were moments of surprising camaraderie. You found yourself laughing with other girls during lessons, sharing hushed secrets over plates of sweet Turkish delights. These moments, fleeting and precious, were like tiny islands of genuine human connection in a vast sea of competition. You learned to read the unspoken language of the harem, the flicker of a jealous glance, the carefully modulated tone of a rival's voice, the subtle shift in alliances, as fluid and unpredictable as the currents of the Bosporus. Every smile was a mask, every kind word a potential trap, and every whispered secret a loaded pistol aimed at an unseen target. You honed your skills not just for survival, but for excellence. Your singing voice, naturally melodious, became even more enchanting, a siren's call that could soothe or stir emotions, drawing listeners into its gentle embrace. Your talent for storytelling, cultivated from the folk tales of your homeland, captivated your peers and even some of the older attendants. You realized that these skills were not just for entertainment. They were tools to connect, to influence, and to weave yourself into the fabric of the harem's complex social tapestry. You were not just existing, you were thriving, evolving, adapting to this strange new world with an almost terrifying speed. The girl who arrived timidly through the gate of felicity was slowly fading, replaced by someone sharper, wiser, and infinitely more dangerous. You were becoming Hurrem, a name that would soon echo beyond the harem walls, a name whispered with both reverence and dread, like a legend taking root in fertile, dangerous soil.
You began to understand the subtle factions forming within the harem, invisible lines drawn between groups of girls based on their origins, their temperaments, or which Khalfa seemed to favor them. You watched how some girls, desperate for attention, would openly antagonize rivals, while others employed more insidious methods, spreading rumors like wildfire through the whispers of the palace. You observed a concubine discreetly, accidentally, spill scented oil on a rival's finest silk dress just before an important gathering, watching the ripple of smug satisfaction on her face. From these small, seemingly insignificant incidents, you learned the brutal, silent rules of this game. You learned that to survive, you couldn't be naive. You had to anticipate, to plan, and sometimes to strike first, like a chess master calculating 10 moves ahead. Every day was a lesson, every interaction a test. You spent hours in the harem's extensive library, devouring historical texts and poetry, understanding that knowledge was power, a shield against ignorance, and a sword against complacency. You practiced your wit, refining your responses, ensuring that your words were always sharp, but never overtly aggressive, like a hidden blade sheathed in velvet. You knew that in a place where physical confrontations were rare, but verbal battles were constant, your mind would be your greatest weapon. You would not just survive, you would flourish, blossoming into a formidable force within these ancient walls. As you looked into the polished silver mirror, you no longer saw the frightened girl who first entered. Instead, a Hurrem, sharp, self-assured, and full of an intriguing mystery, was slowly blooming, like a thorny rose in a desert of stone. Would she be a beacon of light, or a shadow that consumed all? The opulent doors of the harem's grand instruction hall swung open with a soft sigh, revealing a scene both graceful and subtly brutal. You weren't just entering a classroom, you were stepping onto a stage where every gesture, every whispered word could be your triumph or your downfall. The air hummed with the scent of rose oil and simmering ambition, a potent cocktail that pricked at your senses, a silent challenge in every molecule. A formidable old mistress, her face a mask of iron composure, stood at the front, her eyes like polished obsidian, sweeping over the assembly of hopefuls. Suddenly, her cane, a slender ebony stick, cracked sharply against the marble floor, shattering the hushed anticipation like glass. One girl, a delicate beauty with trembling hands, flinched visibly, her teacup clattering against its saucer, sending a ripple of apprehension through the room. The mistress's gaze, sharp as a falcon's, fixed on the girl, and a silent, terrifying judgment passed between them. You felt your own breath catch, a tiny bird trapped in a cage of silk and formality, as the unspoken rules of this unique academy began to unfurl before you, chilling you to the bone. This was no ordinary school. It was a forge, hammering young women into instruments of power, or breaking them into forgotten fragments of dreams. The harem was not merely a luxurious retreat for the sultan. It was a meticulously designed crucible, a unique academy where the raw ore of young women was either refined into instruments of imperial will or melted down into forgotten dross. Each day, peculiar and sophisticated lessons unfolded behind these intricately carved doors, constantly astonishing you. There was the art of walking like a proud peacock, ensuring that every step, every swish of your silken gown exuded both grace and understated authority. You learned how to lift a teacup so that your slender fingers were elegantly showcased, yet still maintaining an air of demure modesty, a paradox of controlled charm, as if each movement was a choreographed dance. Or how to convey an entire message with just a glance, a subtle shift in your eyes, a language spoken without a single uttered word, a silent symphony of intention. The mistress, a woman whose every movement was a lesson in silent power, would patrol the aisles, her obsidian eyes catching every minute transgression. Once, she stopped beside a girl whose posture slumped slightly, placing a single fragrant rose on her head. "When this rose falls, child," she murmured, her voice like silk over steel, "so does your chance to be seen. You must hold yourself as if a crown already rests upon your brow." The girl stood rigid, the flower trembling precariously, a living testament to the unspoken pressure in this school. You were also tutored in the elusive concept of Ottoman beauty, where girls were meticulously trained to possess a physique firm like fish and a waist round as a quince. One couldn't help but inwardly chuckle, imagining the scene. Young women with their waists cinched so tightly they could barely breathe, their rib cages protesting with every shallow gasp, all to ensure that their quince-like midriffs wouldn't balloon into gourds after a few sumptuous feasts. It was a bizarre blend of physical discomfort and aesthetic idealism, a silent sacrifice on the altar of imperial taste. Yet beneath these superficial lessons in aesthetics lay the rigorous tempering of intellect and patience. You learned not only intricate embroidery and elegant calligraphy, but also the Holy Quran, its verses resonating with ancient wisdom, and spent hours listening to historical sagas of ancient dynasties, each tale a veiled lesson in statecraft and survival. You often found yourself musing on the irony. They demanded physical perfection, yet the real battles here were waged within the confines of the mind, a silent war of wits and wills, a constant chess game with invisible pieces. You keenly realized that despite being confined within these towering walls, knowledge was a treasure no one could ever confiscate. Every book you devoured, every story you absorbed, every skill you painstakingly acquired became a robust brick in the fortress you were steadily building for yourself, brick by painful brick. You learned to listen, not just with your ears, but with your heart and intuition, discerning the truth from the insidious whispers of deceit that often masqueraded as sincerity. You observed other girls, their gazes fixed solely on enhancing their physical allure and awaiting the Sultan's favor, but you were different. You instinctively knew that to merely survive and to truly ascend, you needed far more. You needed keen intellect, an unyielding resilience, and a far-reaching vision. For in the harem, a simple smile could conceal a profound plot, an abyss of hidden intentions, and a mere whisper could irrevocably alter a destiny. You were meticulously preparing for the grand chess match of your life, each move carefully considered, each potential outcome weighed.
The curriculum was as varied as the origins of the girls themselves. You studied the Ottoman court language, Farsi and Arabic, your tongue twisting around unfamiliar sounds until they flowed like silk, each new word a tiny victory. You learned the delicate art of playing the cunning, its mournful notes weaving through the palace air, a melody that both soothed and stirred the soul, a bittersweet song of captivity and hope. You discovered that music could be a powerful tool of connection, a bridge between unspoken emotions, a way to convey messages that words dared not. You also delved into the intricate layers of court protocol, understanding that every bow, every gesture, every precise placement of your hands carried a specific weight of meaning, a silent script of power and submission. Learning was your quiet revolution, a whispered defiance against the constraints of your existence, empowering you with every new piece of understanding. Your keen observational skills became your superpower. During evening gatherings where girls performed music or recited poetry, you didn't just participate, you watched the reactions. You saw the flicker of jealousy in a rival's eyes when another received praise, the subtle shift in a kalfa's expression when a particular girl's performance fell short, a tiny crack in their mask of composure. You absorbed the unwritten rules of the harem, who was secretly vying for whose favor, which alliances were fragile and which were cemented by shared ambition. You learned that in this gilded cage, every interaction was a complex dance, and every dance had a hidden score, played out in the silent language of ambition. One afternoon, during a lesson on the history of the sultans, your instructor, a former concubine whose eyes held a profound sadness like ancient pools reflecting forgotten sorrows, recounted the tale of a powerful Valide Sultan who had ruled through her son. Her power, she sighed, her voice thin like aged silk, was not in her beauty, for that fades like a desert flower. It was in her mind, like a sharp blade hidden within the softest of sheaths, always ready, always unseen. Your mind latched on to these words, understanding them as a profound truth. The harem wasn't just about winning the sultan's heart. It was about conquering the very architecture of power itself, piece by meticulous piece. You realized they taught you to smile like an angel, yes, but also how to skillfully conceal a dagger behind your back, a lesson in polite ruthlessness. You began to apply these lessons in your daily interactions, transforming passive observation into active strategy. When another girl, jealous of your quick grasp of lessons, deliberately, accidentally spilled a tray of rose water near your feet, your reaction was not anger, but a cool, calculated smile. You offered her a clean, embroidered cloth with a polite, almost too sweet expression, making her act of malice seem clumsy rather than intentional. Later, you subtly made sure the Khalfa in charge witnessed the remnants of the spilled water along with the girl's lingering scowl. You understood that in this place direct confrontation was rarely wise. The most effective battles were fought with whispers and calculated gestures, like shadows dancing in the moonlight, seen but never quite caught.
The harem also offered glimpses into a world of incredible, almost decadent luxury. You bathed in marble hammams, where sunlight filtered through stained glass domes, painting iridescent patterns on the steam-filled air, turning the very vapor into liquid jewels. The heady scent of exotic oils and fragrant soaps filled your nostrils, a potent blend that spoke of privilege and indulgence, a perfumed prison. You felt the soothing warmth of the polished marble beneath your body, the cool splash of water as attendants poured it over you, a ritualistic purification that also felt like a silent induction into a secret society, a marking of your new identity. Yet even in this sensual indulgence, the pervasive sense of being observed, of being part of a carefully orchestrated performance, never truly left you. The very air shimmered with invisible eyes, watching every movement, every flicker of emotion, like an unseen audience in a grand play. As you continued to refine your skills and expand your knowledge, you found yourself standing apart from many of the other girls. While some were content to dream of the Sultan's favor as their ultimate goal, you understood that it was merely a stepping stone. Your ambition stretched further, reaching for the intricate levers of power that truly moved the imperial machinery beyond the confines of a lover's bedchamber. You learned to read official documents, to understand the complex political currents of the empire, realizing that true influence lay not just within the gilded walls of the harem, but in the very heart of the state. Your mind, once a simple field, was now a blossoming garden of strategy and foresight, preparing for a monumental harvest of power, each thought a carefully planted seed. You began to spend hours in the harem's extensive library, a quiet sanctuary filled with ancient scrolls and leather-bound books that smelled of aged paper and forgotten wisdom, a silent testament to centuries of accumulated knowledge. Here you devoured histories of past empires, biographies of great leaders, and treatises on governance. You learned about political maneuvers, about alliances forged and broken, about how rulers maintained their authority through cunning and strength. Each piece of information was a puzzle piece, slowly forming a complete picture of the grand game played outside your current confines. You understood that this knowledge was not just for academic curiosity, it was a blueprint for your future, a hidden map to ascendancy. At night, as the harem settled into a restless quiet, you would often gaze at your reflection in a polished silver mirror. The girl from Ukraine was slowly, irrevocably fading like a distant memory. In her place, a new face emerged, one with sharper features, a more knowing glint in the green eyes, and a hint of a formidable, almost unreadable smile that held both promise and a hint of steel. You no longer saw the frightened captive. Instead, a Hurrem, sharp, self-assured, and full of an intriguing mystery, was not just blooming, but firmly taking root, like a deeply embedded, formidable gem in a crown of thorns. She was beautiful, yes, but her beauty was now intertwined with a burgeoning intellect and an unyielding, almost terrifying will. The true test, the moment when destiny would truly knock, still awaited you in the next journey, a journey this transformed Hurrem was now ready to embrace.
The air in the grand hall shimmered with unspoken tensions, thick with the scent of 1,000 anxious breaths mingled with the heavy perfume of exotic blossoms. Tonight was the night of the annual imperial feast, a spectacle of opulent excess, where every concubine, a fragile butterfly in a jeweled cocoon, vied for a single fleeting glance from the Sultan. You, however, felt a strange calm and almost detached amusement as you observed the others, their movements a frantic dance of practiced grace. Then, a sudden, searing pain, a sharp, almost invisible prick against your arm, just above the elbow. You stifled the gasp, turning to see Fatma, a rival with eyes like shards of ice, her hand still casually adjusting a bracelet, a faint, mocking smile playing on her lips. A tiny pen, barely visible, had been left for you, a silent, venomous greeting. Your heart, usually a steady drum, skipped a beat, then pounded with a furious new rhythm, a private declaration of war. This wasn't just a feast, it was a battleground, and the first skirmish had just begun, a venomous flower blooming in the Garden of Delights. Sultan Suleiman the Magnificent, the mighty ruler who had conquered vast swaths of the world, possessed a heart that was at times as romantic as a whispered poem and as enigmatic as an ancient riddle. Amidst the hundreds of beauties adorning the harem, each one a polished jewel in a gleaming casket, his gaze inadvertently snagged upon a pair of eyes that shone with a different light, catching their brilliance through the shimmering veil of fine silk. Perhaps it was your unadorned frankness in your gaze, so unlike the practiced deference of others, or indeed your own mischievous laughter, clear and unrestrained, that truly snared his attention, like a tiny storm, just powerful enough to stir the tranquil ocean, causing every eye in the grand hall to pivot and fix upon you. That was the indelible moment when you needed no grand gesture, simply by being authentically yourself, your raw potential, a still unfaceted jewel promising extraordinary fire, destiny gently, yet firmly knocked upon your door. You distinctly felt his gaze upon you, a profound and searching look, filled with both keen scrutiny and an undeniable, intrigued curiosity, a silent conversation spoken across a sea of faces. Suddenly, a heavy hush fell over the hall. The Sultan had arrived. His presence, a magnetic force that subtly pulled every gaze, every breath in the hall towards him, was almost suffocating. You noticed the distinct scent of his personal attar, a rich blend of ambergris and cedar, a deep aroma that seemed to announce his arrival even before his heavy, measured footsteps resonated on the marble, each step a quiet declaration of absolute power. As he surveyed the assembled women, his eyes, like deep pools of ancient wisdom, lingered on you for a fraction longer than on anyone else. It was an imperceptible hesitation to others, a mere blink. But to you, it felt like an eternity, a silent thunderclap in the vast, still silence of the harem. You were summoned to his private chambers, not just once, but repeatedly. Each summons a silent victory, each visit a tantalizing dance with destiny. Each time you stepped into the Sultan's personal space, you sensed the palpable tension in the air, a mixture of anticipation and reverence, accompanied by the unique masculine scent that was distinctly his, and the soft, diffused light filtering from the high-hanging lanterns, casting long, dancing shadows that seemed to whisper secrets. You weren't merely liked, you utterly captivated him with your sharp intellect, your vibrant wit, and a candor that was refreshingly uncommon in a world of practiced flattery. During one such audience, he suddenly leaned forward, his voice a low murmur. "Tell me, Hurrem, if you were Sultan, how would you address the rebellion in Anatolia?" It was a test, a challenge thrown like a gauntlet. You paused, your mind racing, then responded with a thoughtful analysis of diplomacy and force, seeing the flicker of admiration in his eyes. Your words, carefully chosen, became delicate threads weaving themselves into the very fabric of his decisions, binding him to your intellect.
You blessed him not just with one son, but with multiple children, an unprecedented turn of events, a miracle of fertility that shattered centuries of tradition and sent ripples of shock through the palace. News of your rising favor, of the growing number of princes you bore, spread through the harem like a swarm of angry bees, each buzzing rumor a poisoned arrow. Daggers of resentment and envy seemed to flash in the eyes of other concubines, their gazes like poisoned darts aimed at your back, their whispers sharp as broken glass. Your brilliant, undeniable light had undeniably eclipsed the full moon glow of other women, pushing them into the chilling shadows of jealousy and despair, a cruel cosmic joke. A secret love letter, perhaps, slipped to you by a trusted hand, its parchment warm with his touch, or a small, intimately chosen gift from the Sultan, a jewel, a rare book, a fragrant flower, sent tremors through the entire harem, each ripple a shockwave of your ascendancy. The Sultan's affection for you was no mere private affair. It was a tidal wave, sweeping away age-old traditions and prejudices within the imperial palace, a love story written in the stars, yet etched in the very stones of the harem, redefining its very foundations. You began to understand, with chilling clarity, that this was not merely a tale of affection. It was a perilous, high-stakes game of power. Each time the Sultan showed you preference, each time his eyes lingered on you longer, it was a subtle yet potent dagger plunged into the heart of other concubines, particularly Mahidevran, the former favorite and mother of the eldest prince Mustafa. You saw the raw hatred burning in their eyes, a visible inferno of fury, yet beneath it you also perceived a chilling, desperate fear. This fear was your greatest ally, for it meant they knew your power was growing. You understood that to safeguard this precious yet precarious affection, to protect your own burgeoning brood, you had to become stronger, more cunning than ever before. You learned to discern the whispers of the wind, the insidious rumors that snaked through the harem's labyrinthine corridors like unseen serpents, and to transform them into invaluable intelligence, each rumor a tiny, crucial thread in a vast, intricate web of intrigue, waiting to be pulled. Every gift bestowed upon you by the Sultan, every tender gesture of his affection, served as an unspoken declaration of power, a public pronouncement broadcast to the remaining women in the harem. You were no longer just a beloved companion. You were steadily transforming into a symbol, a direct challenge to the entrenched old order, a living, breathing testament to change. And in this treacherous world, where everything could be seized from you at any given moment, you understood that love, while a priceless asset, was also an immeasurable burden. It painted a target on your back. You stood poised on the precarious pinnacle of royal favor, a dazzling tightrope walker bathed in the spotlight, yet simultaneously peered into the yawning abyss of ceaseless conspiracy that lurked beneath, a dazzling tightrope walk between glory and ruin, with every step a gamble. The Sultan's fascination with your intellect was as powerful as his admiration for your beauty. He genuinely sought your counsel, not just on trivial matters of court gossip, but on weighty affairs of state, discussions that would traditionally be reserved exclusively for his male advisors. You found yourself drawn into debates about trade routes across the Silk Road, the strategic advantages of military campaigns against rebellious provinces, and the delicate dance of diplomatic strategies with distant empires, your mind a fertile ground for new, innovative ideas. These conversations, held in the hushed intimacy of his chambers, were like secret lessons, equipping you with the knowledge that would soon become your formidable weapon. Each word exchanged, a hidden gem added to your growing arsenal. You understood that this was your true power, not merely being desired, but being intellectually indispensable, an irreplaceable mind.
This unprecedented level of access, this intellectual camaraderie, was another sharp thorn in the side of your rivals, twisting deeper with each passing day. They watched, seething, as you not only bore the Sultan children, but also captivated his mind, a feat that no other woman had truly accomplished, a fortress conquered not by force, but by intellect. Mahidevran, in particular, saw her influence, once unassailable as the dawn, rapidly eroding, melting away like snow in the sun. You noticed her growing desperation, a volatile concoction of fear and fury, often glimpsed in her tightly clenched jaw or the cold blank stare she sometimes offered, a storm brewing on the horizon of the harem's calm, threatening to break. You started to subtly gather your own network of informers, a delicate web of loyalties woven from small favors, whispered promises, and the quiet currency of hope. You'd offer a kind word to a tired kitchen girl, a small, intricate hairpin to a curious attendant, or a gentle, understanding glance to a chambermaid who seemed burdened by secrets. One such girl, Aisha, a young woman with a quiet demeanor and sharp ears, once confided in you about Mahidevran's increasing frustration, revealing how the former favorite often sent messages to powerful viziers outside the harem. This tiny piece of information, seemingly innocuous, was a golden key. You knew who spoke to whom, who held grudges like festering wounds, and who was ambitious enough to be swayed to your side. The harem, a world of locked doors and iron bars, was surprisingly permeable to information, like water seeping through invisible cracks in stone, revealing hidden currents. The pressure was immense, a constant, suffocating weight that pressed down on your chest. Every morning you awoke with a renewed sense of purpose, knowing that each day was another test, another opportunity to solidify your position or risk losing everything. You learned to mask your fears, to project an aura of serene confidence, a perfect porcelain doll concealing a heart of steel, unbreakable and unyielding. You perfected the art of strategic withdrawal, knowing precisely when to step back and let your rivals expose their own weaknesses, allowing their own unchecked ambition to become their undoing, a puppet master pulling invisible strings. The whispers around you were constant. She's too bold. She's a witch. She has bewitched the Sultan. Yet these very whispers fueled your resolve, cementing your belief that you are on the right path, for only those who pose a threat are truly slandered. The Sultan, your rock and your most significant ally, became your universe, the sun around which your world revolved. His laughter filled your days, a melodious sound rarely heard by others, his presence a comforting warmth in the chilling, treacherous world of the harem. But even with him, you understood the delicate dance of power. You never took his affection for granted, always nurturing the connection, offering him not only beauty and passion, but intellectual stimulation, unwavering loyalty, and the solace of true companionship.
You were his sanctuary, his confidant, the one person in his vast empire he could truly trust, a rare harbor in a stormy sea. This bond, forged in the fires of mutual respect and deep affection, was the strongest weapon in your arsenal, a golden shield against the harem's constant onslaught, a bastion against every insidious plot. You often found yourself gazing out of your window at night, the city of Istanbul sprawling beneath the benevolent moon, a distant glittering tapestry of lights, each one a tiny life living unaware of the drama within the palace. In the quiet solitude, you pondered the astonishing path you had walked, from a terrified captive to the cherished confidant of the most powerful man in the world. You understood that this journey was far from over. The higher you climbed, the more precarious the footing became, and the more devastating the fall. But looking at your reflection in the polished silver, a faint, determined smile touched your lips. You were no longer just Alexandra Lizovska, the innocent girl from Ukraine. You were Hurrem, a formidable force to be reckoned with, a queen in the making. And you were ready for whatever the next twist in this extraordinary story would bring. Your destiny, once a distant star, was now firmly within your grasp, glittering with both immense promise and inherent peril, a crown waiting to be claimed.
The harem hummed with a tension so thick you could almost taste it, like the metallic tang of unspoken hostility hanging heavy in the perfumed air. Every glance felt like a judgment, every whispered conversation a potential conspiracy. You stood in the sun-drenched courtyard, ostensibly enjoying the cool breeze, when the rhythmic swish of silk announced Mahidevran's approach. Her eyes, usually veiled by a calculated indifference, now blazed with an inferno of hatred, fixing upon you like a predator on its prey. A circle of lesser concubines, their faces a mix of feigned sympathy and eager anticipation, gathered around, silent witnesses to the impending storm. As Mahidevran drew near, her voice, usually a melodious murmur, became a venomous hiss, cutting through the serene quiet. "Look at her, girls," she sneered, her lip curling in disgust. "A piece of dirty merchandise from the slave market, daring to sully the Sultan's chambers with her peasant stench." Then, with a practiced, almost imperceptible flick of her wrist, she accidentally tipped her small, exquisitely painted porcelain cup, sending a dark splash of bitter coffee cascading down the front of your pristine, pearl-embroidered silken gown. The warm liquid seeped into the delicate fabric, a physical manifestation of the insult, but your composure remained a fortress, unbreached. Your skin prickled, not from the coffee, but from the raw indignity, yet a cold fire ignited deep within you, a silent promise of retribution etched in your soul. The Sultan's profound affection for you undeniably ignited a silent war within the harem, a brutal conflict fought without the clash of swords, where seemingly innocent smiles could cleverly conceal razor-sharp daggers, and the truth was merely a flimsy, easily manipulated veil. Mahidevran, the former favorite and mother of the esteemed Prince Mustafa, now regarded you with an almost volcanic hatred, seeing you not just as a rival, but as an intolerable threat to her son's future, a dark cloud obscuring his rightful sun. In that taut,
public confrontation amidst the nervous giggles of the concubines who eagerly encircled you like a pack of jackals, Mahidevran did not shy away from unleashing her venomous insults. She spat words like dirty merchandise from the slave market, and, as if to underscore her disdain, deliberately spilled her dark coffee onto your exquisite silken gown. Your skin prickled and burned with indignity, a slow-burning ember of rage, but you stood your ground, utterly unyielding.
You did not scream, did not recoil, did not dignify her malice with an immediate, furious response. Instead, you remained utterly silent, your posture unwavering, your eyes reflecting a cold, sharp glint, like a blade being meticulously sharpened in the quiet darkness, patiently awaiting its opportune moment. You understood the harem's intricate choreography of power. You knew that a hasty, emotional reaction would only make you appear weak, a common brawler. Afterward, you did not rush to the Sultan with immediate accusations. Instead, you waited. You observed, calculating the precise, most impactful moment to recount the incident to the Sultan. You didn't just recite the raw facts, you masterfully embellished the narrative, subtly coloring the story with poignant details that painted you as a fragile, wronged victim, yet one possessed of an unyielding spirit. You highlighted Mahidevran's public display of disrespect not just to you, but implicitly to the Sultan's own choice, to his very authority. Every carefully chosen word you uttered became a subtle drop of slow-acting poison, gently seeping into the Sultan's heart, gradually eroding his steadfast trust and diminishing his affection for Mahidevran, brick by imperceptible brick. The repercussions were swift and devastating. Mahidevran's favor dwindled, not in one dramatic expulsion, but through countless instances where the Sultan simply forgot to summon her to his chambers. It was a brutal, yet invaluable lesson. In the harem, words could be infinitely sharper than any sword, and a seemingly innocent smile could expertly conceal a profound and treacherous conspiracy. You instinctively understood that within the harem's treacherous confines, honor and standing were as delicate and fleeting as the first cherry blossoms of spring, requiring only the gentlest breeze to scatter them into oblivion. You rapidly honed your ability to read people, to discern who was a genuine ally and who was a potential adversary, simply through a fleeting glance, a subtle gesture, or the nuanced tone of their voice. You began to meticulously construct your own intricate web of intelligence, extending from the lowliest, most overlooked serving girls to the most powerful and seemingly unapproachable eunuchs. You knew with unwavering certainty that to safeguard your precarious position and to ensure the brilliant future of your children, you had to remain perpetually one step ahead, always seeing the next move on the invisible chessboard.
During long, restless nights, you often awoke driven by a nameless unease and gazed out of your window, where the cold, impartial moonlight illuminated the towering, unyielding walls of the harem. You found yourself pondering a chilling question. Were you slowly transforming into a monster within this gilded cage? Or was this merely the raw instinct of survival asserting itself, forcing you into a brutal war from which there was no possible retreat? Fear, A constant companion always lurked in the shadows of your mind, a venomous serpent coiling around your thoughts. But paradoxically, it became the relentless force that propelled you forward. For you knew with absolute certainty that in the ruthless harem, compassion could swiftly become an unbearable burden, and even a hint of weakness would be mercilessly devoured without a trace. You had to become unyielding. You had to become ruthless, not for glory, but simply to see the dawn of another day, to breathe another breath. Your network of informants began to flourish, a subtle tapestry woven from threads of whispers and observations. You would engage the laundrywomen in seemingly innocuous conversations, gleaning crucial details about whose silk was sent to be cleaned most often, indicating frequent summons to the Sultan's chambers, or whose garments bore signs of agitation. You offered small, unexpected kindnesses to the kitchen staff, a word of praise, a small gift of sweetmeats, and in return, they unknowingly became your eyes and ears, reporting on unusual food requests or the sudden arrival of specific ingredients, each crumb of information a tiny piece of a larger, more sinister puzzle. Even the younger, more impressionable Khalfas, drawn to your bright intellect and genuine charm, found themselves inadvertently sharing details about palace schedules and the moods of higher-ranking concubines. You understood that trust was a rare and precious commodity in the harem, and you cultivated it like a delicate, vital plant. Your quiet rise continued to provoke Mahidevran, whose frustration simmered beneath a thin veneer of strained civility. You rarely saw her now. Her summons to the Sultan's chambers had become rarer than rain in the desert. When your paths did cross, usually in the communal hammam or during a rare harem assembly, her eyes would meet yours, and in their depths you saw not just hatred, but a profound, aching despair, a soul slowly consumed by the fires of resentment. She had once been the sun, and now she was a fading star, desperately clinging to the memory of her former brilliance. You understood her pain, for it was a future you were determined to avoid, a stark reminder of the harem's brutal cycle of rise and fall. The Sultan, in his continued adoration, became your very shield. His gifts were not merely tokens of affection, they were calculated statements of your growing status. A new chamber, larger and more opulent than Mahidevran's, adorned with rare silks and intricate tiles, was bestowed upon you. Then came the unique privilege of accompanying him on hunting trips, riding alongside him through the sprawling imperial forests, a freedom unimaginable for any other harem woman. These public displays of favor were like thunderclaps, reverberating through the palace, cementing your position and sending clear messages to your rivals. The Sultan's favor was a blazing sun, and you were its chosen satellite, reflecting its glory. Yet with every new privilege, every whispered word of envy, the invisible chains of responsibility tightened around you. The safety of your children, their very lives, depended entirely on your continued influence. You knew that Mahidevran's anger was not just directed at you, it was a threat to your sons, the future princes of the Ottoman Empire. This stark reality was a constant, sharp spur, driving you to even greater heights of strategic thinking. You analyzed every potential threat, every possible scenario, your mind a complex loom, weaving 1,000 contingency plans simultaneously. In the quiet of your grand new chambers, as the city lights twinkled beneath a velvet sky, you often found yourself pacing, the soft rug muffling your anxious footsteps. The scent of exotic incense filled the air, a luxurious perfume that could not mask the scent of lingering fear. You reflected on the brutal journey from Alexandra, the innocent girl, to Hurrem, the formidable force within the harem. The path was paved with sacrifice, with choices that chipped away at your former self. Was this strength, this ruthlessness, a metamorphosis, or a monstrous transformation? You weren't entirely sure, but you knew that in this extraordinary story, with the highest stakes imaginable, there was no turning back. Your future and the future of your children hung precariously on the threads of power and cunning, and you, the thorny rose of the harem, were ready to face the full bloom of destiny, no matter how sharp its thorns.
The harem, that gilded cage, often presented itself as a still, shimmering lake, its surface reflecting only tranquility and ancient order. But on that fateful morning in 1534, a single audacious announcement ripped through its serene facade, sending shockwaves that rippled through every stone, every silk tapestry, every calculating heart, threatening to shatter its very glass ceiling. Sultan Suleiman, the very embodiment of imperial tradition, had declared his intention to do the unthinkable. He would take you, Hurrem, his beloved companion, as his lawful wife. A gasp, collective and profound, swept through the assembled women, followed by a suffocating silence, each breath held in disbelief. 1,000 pairs of eyes, once filled with casual disdain or thinly veiled pity, now burned with a mixture of utter disbelief, stark incredulity, and a chilling, almost reverent awe. A mere captive, plucked from the slave markets, was to become the empress of an empire that spanned 3 continents? It was a defiance of fate, a slap in the face to destiny itself, echoing through the ages. The air, usually thick with the scent of jasmine and ambition, now crackled with the raw electricity of a revolution. The news, a veritable bombshell, exploded beyond the harem walls, reverberating throughout the vast Ottoman Empire. Western envoys, usually composed and stoic, gaped with open astonishment, their dispatches back to distant courts filled with frantic, disbelieving scribbles. They branded it unheard of, a miracle of love, while the proud Ottoman aristocracy whispered feverishly behind cupped hands, their dignified composure crumbling under the weight of this unprecedented act. Their faces, normally a mask of polite indifference, were now etched with incredulity and perhaps a hint of fear. Only the most hopelessly naive, the most tragically romantic souls could possibly believe that this was merely love, a simple, uncomplicated affection. This union was a meticulously placed chess piece, a bold stroke in a grander game, its true depths hidden beneath the shimmering veil of devotion, waiting to be unveiled. The Sultan, with an unwavering resolve that defied every courtly whisper and every established precedent, he didn't just merely liberate you, he publicly solemnized your union, bestowing upon you a position utterly unprecedented in the annals of Ottoman history. The wedding ceremony itself did not require excessive pomp or grand ostentation. Its power lay not in its lavishness, but in its quiet, profound defiance. The atmosphere, however, was suffused with your profound sense of quiet triumph, a victorious hum, and the Sultan's steely determination as he faced down the palpable, unspoken opposition from the established elite. As he took your hand in his, a firm, warm clasp, his eyes met yours, and in their depth you saw not just love, but a fierce, unyielding resolve,
a promise whispered without words. It was not the gilded trappings, but the defiant joy in his gaze that sealed your fate, marking you as his and his empire's forever. The eyes of the Grand Viziers, normally impenetrable fortresses of political cunning, and the esteemed Islamic scholars, custodians of sacred law, held a complex blend of simmering doubt and reluctant admiration. They understood, with a chilling clarity, that this was far more than a personal event. It was a lightning bolt striking directly into the very heart of the empire, signaling the inexorable dawn of a new era, an age where even the most powerful men would have to tread carefully around the women veiled within the harem's enigmatic embrace, for one of them now wore a crown.
You stood there, in your resplendent silken wedding gown, feeling the surprising yet comforting weight of a subtle, regal crown upon your head. The collective gaze of hundreds of eyes, 1,000 silent judgments bore down upon you, yet you met each one with a quiet, unshakable dignity. It was the sweetest taste of victory you had ever known, a profound vindication of every struggle, every tear, yet simultaneously it marked the solemn commencement of an immeasurable new burden. Now, you were no longer merely the favored companion. You were the first and only legal empress of the Ottoman Empire, Hurrem Sultan, a title that resonated with both unprecedented power and perilous responsibility, a double-edged sword. This exalted position brought with it an almost unimaginable authority, but it also placed you squarely in the crosshairs of every simmering conspiracy, every hidden dagger. You were now a living symbol, a bold challenge to the entrenched old order, a defiant banner fluttering against the winds of tradition. And you knew with every beat of your heart that the true battles, the most treacherous skirmishes for enduring power, had only just begun. Every congratulatory word, every forced, brittle smile offered by the other women in the harem, carried layers of insidious meaning that only you, with your honed instincts, could truly decipher. You had, against all odds, proved that even from the very lowest rung of society, a woman could ascend to the zenith of power, armed with nothing but her sharp intellect, unyielding resilience, and perhaps a touch of unexpected fortune, or, more likely, an extraordinary cleverness that bordered on genius. This unprecedented marriage did not just irrevocably alter the trajectory of your individual life, it fundamentally reshaped the very destiny of an entire empire, sending tremors through its ancient veins, cracking its foundations. You had courageously flung open a previously impenetrable door for female influence, but now you had to walk through that very door yourself, facing trials and tribulations unlike any ever encountered, and guarding what you had so painstakingly achieved with every fiber of your being, at any imaginable cost. The air itself seemed to vibrate with the sheer audacity of your triumph, yet it also whispered warnings of the dangers that now clung to your newly acquired crown like shadows, long and ominous. The reaction outside the harem walls was equally seismic, a tempest brewing in the calm of imperial stability. The ulama, the esteemed body of Islamic scholars, murmured in hushed, disapproving tones about the flagrant breach of tradition, their sacred texts interpreted to condemn such a union. You even heard whispers, carried on the wind through your new grand chambers, of a heated debate in the imperial council, where some powerful viziers openly questioned the sultan's wisdom.
One anecdote reached your ears of a high-ranking pasha who, in subtle protest, feigned illness to avoid attending a public ceremony where your presence as empress was required. The sultan's response was swift and silent. The pasha's personal stables suffered a devastating fire that very night. The sultan's will was absolute, a force of nature that no religious decree or veiled protest could truly withstand, a silent warning etched in smoke. Foreign ambassadors, their dispatches back to distant courts filled with astonishment and thinly veiled alarm, described you as the laughing one, the Ruslana, a woman of astonishing influence who held the sultan's heart in her hand, a living legend born from a prisoner's fate. Your very existence became a diplomatic incident, a testament to the unpredictable, often brutal currents of imperial power. You quickly discovered that the Empress's chambers were not just grandeur, they were a new command center, the very nerve center of a burgeoning political force. From this vantage point, you began to subtly influence court appointments, recommending loyal, capable individuals to key administrative positions, their appointments seemingly coincidental to the outside eye. You received petitions from common people, their faces etched with hardship, hearing their grievances directly and bravely bringing them to the Sultan's attention, bypassing the slow, often corrupt bureaucracy that typically ensnared them. This direct line to the Sultan, once a fleeting privilege, was now an established right, a potent weapon you wielded with increasing confidence and precision. Your influence, once a gentle breeze, was now a powerful, undeniable wind, shaping the very landscape of the empire with every strategic move.
Mahidevran, now relegated to the distant, dust-filled fringes of the harem, watched your ascendancy with a bitterness that tasted like ash, coating her every waking moment. Her once bright, bustling chambers now felt like a lonely mausoleum, filled only with the chilling ghosts of forgotten favors and lost dreams. You sometimes saw her in the distance, a figure cloaked in shadows, her once proud bearing slumped, her eyes vacant and hollow, devoid of their former fire. Her few remaining loyalists would whisper tales of her despair, of her growing isolation, how she would spend hours staring blankly at the Bosphorus, a chilling reminder of the harem's unforgiving nature, a beautiful garden that could just as easily become a lonely, forgotten desert. The contrast between her tragic downfall and your meteoric rise was stark, a living parable played out in the gilded halls for all to see, a cautionary tale. The full weight of your new title, Hurrem Sultan, settled upon you like a magnificent yet undeniably heavy cloak, woven with threads of destiny and danger. It carried not just immense prestige, but a profound sense of responsibility for the millions under the Sultan's dominion. You were not just a wife, you were now a political entity, a matriarch in the making, whose every action, every decision would be scrutinized, judged, and potentially weaponized by eager enemies. You began to solidify your alliances, forming unbreakable bonds with powerful figures in the court who saw the rising tide of your influence and wisely chose to sail with it rather than against it. These alliances were built on mutual interest, a delicate balance of favors given and received, of unwavering loyalty earned through shrewd calculation, a fragile bridge built over a chasm of constant peril, yet strong enough to bear the weight of an empire. In the quiet solitude of your grand new chambers, bathed in the soft golden glow of oil lamps, the city lights twinkling beneath a velvet sky, you often stood before your polished silver mirror. The reflection was no longer just the determined Hurrem of previous chapters. This was a woman of formidable power, her green eyes holding a deeper, more complex understanding of the world, their depths now mirroring the very soul of the empire. Her lips often curved in a slight, knowing smile, a mixture of triumph and the profound wisdom gained through endless battles. The thorny rose had not just bloomed, it had taken deep, unshakable root, its resilient tendrils reaching out, firmly grasping the very stones of the palace, intertwining with its ancient foundations. You recognize the immense challenges that lay ahead, the constant need for vigilance, for strategic foresight. The empire was vast, its power intoxicating, and you, its new empress, were ready to carve out your indelible mark, not just as the Sultan's beloved, but as a force that would forever change the Ottoman dynasty, shaping its future with every calculated breath. This was your reign, a story waiting to be written in bold, unforgettable strokes, a legacy destined to echo through eternity.
The air in the Grand Vizier's opulent chambers, usually thick with the scent of ambition and aged parchment, now carried a distinct chill, a foreboding quiet that even the flickering oil lamps couldn't dispel. Ibrahim Pasha, the Sultan's closest confidant and the undisputed master of imperial policy, retired that night with a full stomach and a mind perhaps too full of his own grandeur. The last sound heard echoing through the silent palace corridors was the soft click of his chamber door, closing, perhaps, for the very last time. Then nothing. Just the vast, breathing silence of the sleeping palace. By dawn, a profound whisper, colder than any winter wind, swept through the harem, freezing smiles and chilling hearts. Ibrahim Pasha was dead. No cries had pierced the night, no struggle had been heard. Yet his demise painted a corner of the palace in shades of crimson, staining not with blood, but with the chilling permanence of fear and unspoken consequences. The scent of treachery, subtle yet unmistakable, now clung to the very air, a ghostly shroud. Every eye, even those of the most hardened eunuchs, held a shared, unspoken question, a silent accusation, hanging heavy like a forgotten tapestry. Now, as empress, you no longer harbored any pretense of gentle deference. The relationship between you and Grand Vizier Ibrahim Pasha, once the Sultan's closest confidant and the undisputed master of imperial policy, had become a wire, taut as a bowstring, poised to snap at any given moment. Ibrahim, who had once viewed this woman of the slave market with dismissive disdain, now found himself confronting an unexpectedly formidable adversary, a force he could neither comprehend nor control. Their interactions were a delicate dance on a razor's edge. Subtle duels of eyes played out during lavish banquets, your gaze mirroring his defiance, while sharp veiled allusions, carefully delivered through third parties, meticulously poured oil onto the smoldering embers of the Sultan's growing irritation with Ibrahim, causing his temper to flare. Whispers, insidious and persistent, began to circulate through the court.
Ibrahim, they said, had become utterly consumed by arrogance, accumulating vast personal wealth that rivaled the imperial treasury, and perhaps he had dared to overshadow the Sultan himself in certain matters. These rumors of his boundless hubris, spreading like an unstoppable contagion, were certainly not accidental. They were seeds carefully sown by an unseen hand, cultivated for a devastating harvest. That fateful night, after sharing an intimate meal and what appeared to be a cordial exchange with the Sultan, Ibrahim Pasha forever slipped into the embrace of eternal slumber. No visible drop of blood stained the pristine marble floors. No anguished cry pierced the silent night. Yet Ibrahim's demise metaphorically stained a vast corner of the palace in crimson, forever tainting the serene dreams of its inhabitants, and fueling hushed, fearful whispers that snaked through the corridors like unseen serpents. Though no one explicitly witnessed your hand in the deed, your shadowy presence loomed over the entire event, an enigmatic shadow cast by the very light of your growing power. It was widely whispered, in hushed, terrified tones, that you had meticulously planted the seeds of suspicion within the Sultan's mind, much like a cunning gardener cultivates poisonous plants, patiently awaiting the precise moment they would sprout and inextricably entangle their unsuspecting victim. It was a chillingly valuable lesson, etched in the annals of Hurrem power. True authority sometimes demanded an unbearable price, and the women of the Hurrem, forged in the crucible of survival, understood this brutal truth more intimately than anyone else. You knew, with a cold, clear certainty, that this drastic action would inevitably ignite a firestorm of gossip and veiled condemnation, painting you as a merciless schemer. But you also understood, with an even deeper conviction, that it was an absolute necessity. In this merciless game of survival, played out in gilded halls, there was no room for lingering weakness or excessive compassion. You had to systematically eliminate any genuine threats, fiercely protecting your hard-won position and the precious future of your children, who were your very anchor and your ultimate motivation. Each night, as you gazed upon your sleeping children, their innocent faces bathed in the soft glow of moonlight, you felt an unwavering resolve solidify within you, reaffirming the harshness of your decisions. Their dreams became your armor, their vulnerability your sharpened blade.
Perhaps, in the quiet, reflective moments before dawn, a flicker of doubt would pierce through your formidable resolve, and you would ask yourself if you were irrevocably losing a piece of your own humanity, slowly shedding your former self like a snake sheds its skin. But you would swiftly suppress such thoughts, for you knew with a chilling clarity that in the cutthroat world of the harem, compassion could swiftly become a crippling burden, and innocence, a naive dream, was nothing short of a death sentence. You had, with open eyes and a resolute heart, chosen the perilous path of power, and you understood that you must stoically accept all its profound and often brutal consequences. Ibrahim's swift and silent demise served as a chilling, undeniable warning to all who dared to challenge the new order. The harem was certainly no place for frivolous games, and you, Hurrem Sultan, the architect of a new era, were most certainly not a woman to be easily defeated, for you were now a force of nature, untamed and unyielding.
The palace, once Ibrahim's undeniable domain, now seemed to breathe a different air. His network of loyalists, once so formidable, crumbled like ancient ruins, their power dissipated into thin air. You observed their frantic scrambles to secure new patrons, their faces etched with a fear that mirrored the very terror they had once inflicted. This swift, decisive removal of such a powerful figure sent ripples of apprehension throughout the entire imperial court, extending far beyond the harem walls. Even the most seasoned viziers and pashas, who had once considered themselves untouchable, now walked with a newfound caution, their eyes constantly scanning the shadows, each one a puppet suddenly aware of the strings held by an unseen hand. Your sphere of influence, already vast, expanded exponentially. With Ibrahim gone, the Sultan leaned on you even more heavily, his trust in your judgment deepening, his reliance on your sharp intellect becoming almost absolute. You began to actively participate in high-level discussions, your insights proving invaluable in military strategies and diplomatic negotiations. You found yourself dictating letters to foreign monarchs, signing documents with your own seal, a symbol of your unprecedented authority. The ink on the parchment carried the weight of your will, shaping the destiny of nations. The harem itself underwent a subtle but profound transformation. The concubines who had once sided with Mahidevran now scurried to earn your favor, their forced smiles wider, their flattery more pronounced. You, however, observed them with a cool, detached amusement, understanding that their loyalty was born of fear, not genuine admiration. You knew better to trust easily, your past lessons etched deeply into your psyche. The days of petty jealousies and spilled coffee seemed almost quaint now. The game had escalated to a terrifying new level, where lives, not just reputations, were the stakes. The harem, once a gilded cage, now felt more like a silent, deadly chessboard, and you, Hurrem, were its undisputed queen. The burden of your decisions weighed heavily, even amidst the triumph. You sometimes found your hands trembling slightly as you signed an imperial decree, or your breath catching as you considered the potential consequences of a diplomatic move. The loneliness of power, a cold, isolated peak, was a constant companion. You missed the days when your greatest concern was merely surviving, not orchestrating the survival of an empire through cunning and calculated ruthlessness. Your heart, once a vibrant song, now beat with a muted, steady rhythm, attuned only to the relentless cadence of strategy. Yet when you looked at your children, their innocent faces aglow with trust, a renewed surge of fierce determination coursed through your veins. They were your reason, your shield against the creeping darkness. For them, you would endure any hardship, bear any criticism, make any necessary sacrifice. You would ensure their future, a future free from the perilous uncertainties you had endured. Their sweet breath was the fuel to your fire, their innocent laughter the music that drowned out the harem's silent screams. The palace, once a place of fear, was now your domain, a fortress you would defend with every fiber of your being for your children and for the legacy you were meticulously carving into the very annals of history. Your story, one of resilience forged in the fires of power, was far from over.
The imperial encampment, usually vibrant with the clamor of 1,000 soldiers and the scent of wood smoke, had taken on a peculiar, suffocating stillness. A chill,
colder than the autumn wind whipping through the tents, settled over everything, a premonition of doom. You, back in the palace, felt it even across the miles, a tightening in your chest. Then the whispers began. They slithered through the harem's corridors like unseen snakes, each one a venomous dart aimed at the heart of Prince Mustafa. He had been summoned to his father's tent, alone, unarmed, a lamb walking willingly to the slaughter. A heavy silence descended, broken only by the frantic beat of your own heart. Suddenly, an ominous, guttural cry, short and abruptly cut off, seemed to echo across the empire, chilling your very bones. It was the sound of a life extinguished, a future annihilated, and with it the quiet crack of a father's heart. The atmosphere in the harem became suffocating, charged with unspoken terror and the knowledge that a game of immense stakes had just reached its brutal, irreversible conclusion. The greatest, most existential threat to you and your sons was undeniably Prince Mustafa, the eldest son of Sultan Suleiman and his former favorite, Mahidevran. Mustafa was more than just the rightful heir. He was a genuinely talented prince, a charismatic leader deeply beloved by both the common people and the formidable Janissary army, shining like a brilliant, unwavering star that anyone could admire and trust implicitly. His ascension to the throne, a seemingly inevitable future, would spell utter catastrophe for your own sons. For in the brutal tradition of Ottoman succession, all rival princes were summarily eliminated to prevent civil war. Thus all your arduous struggles, your every calculated risk, your entire life's relentless fight for influence would become utterly meaningless, dissolving like smoke. A meticulously crafted, intricate conspiracy began to weave its insidious threads, not with the overt clash of swords or the roar of cannons, but with the subtle venom of whispers and the cold precision of forged letters, each word a silent poison infiltrating the very heart of the empire. You, with the quiet cunning of a spider weaving its fatal web, skillfully laid the trap for Mustafa. You subtly disseminated insidious rumors within the military ranks, whispering of his growing popularity, of his ambition perhaps overshadowing the Sultan's, hints of disloyalty that seemed to bloom from nowhere. Then came the discovery of mysterious letters, subtly hinting at a treacherous correspondence with foreign powers, or perhaps with the rebellious Safavid enemies. Letters that seemed to appear out of thin air, yet were undeniably real enough to sow deep seeds of doubt in the Sultan's fiercely protective heart. These insidious whispers, coupled with the forged documents, meticulously fanned the flames of the Sultan's growing suspicion, painting a portrait of his beloved son as a potential traitor. In that fateful, chilling encounter with his own father, the talented Prince Mustafa, his spirit still perhaps echoing with youthful idealism, was brutally strangled by the silent, relentless executioners. Sultan Suleiman, the mighty ruler who had conquered vast swaths of the known world, undoubtedly endured a sleepless night, the mournful wind howling outside his imperial tent like the very wailing of fate, a tormented soul caught in a storm of agonizing choice. The sacred bond of father and son, once a delicate, cherished thread, had been ruthlessly severed by the merciless shears of power. And that, you knew, was the agonizing, inevitable price demanded for ultimate survival. The heavy echo of footsteps, followed by a terrifying, absolute silence, now hung in the air.
a silence more profound and devastating than 1,000 laments. A grim secret, a specter haunting the dynasty's soul, now rested unspoken, a permanent stain on the fabric of time. You now had eliminated the greatest threat to your future and the lives of your beloved sons. Yet was there a fleeting moment of profound anguish, a quiet pang of remorse, as you stood alone, gazing out of your window, the cold, impartial moonlight bathing your face in its stark, unforgiving glow? You might have silently questioned your own soul. Had you, in this relentless pursuit of power, slowly transformed into a monstrous entity? Or were you merely a mother, driven by an ancient primal instinct, doing every conceivable thing to shield her precious brood in a world where weakness was an unpardonable sin, where tenderness invited immediate ruin? The questions lingered, unanswered, suspended in the cold night air.
Despite the torrent of whispers, the venomous accusations that now swirled around your name like a miasma, you stood unyielding, an unassailable fortress. This was the brutal, unforgiving lesson of survival within the harem. You win, you gain everything. You lose, you forfeit all. Your life, from a captive girl torn from her homeland, had been a relentless journey through countless hardships, navigating endless conspiracies, all to secure a position not just for yourself, but for the very future of your children, their innocent lives intertwined with your ambitious struggle. The tragic death of Mustafa was not merely a personal tragedy. It was the chilling culmination of an unending power struggle, a brutal testament to a world where even the most sacred familial bonds could become agonizing hostages in the grand game of thrones. His demise cast a long, chilling shadow, a stark reminder of the ruthless costs of imperial ambition. The news of Mustafa's fate sent tremors far beyond the palace, reaching the farthest corners of the empire. The loyal janissaries, who adored him as their future leader, murmured in rebellious undertones, their loyalty now fractured, their hearts heavy with suspicion. You felt the subtle shift in the court's atmosphere, the cautious glances, the fear mixed with a new, grudging respect for your formidable, almost terrifying influence. You had played the ultimate gamble, and you had won, but the victory tasted bitter-sweet, tinged with the metallic tang of moral compromise. The crown, once a dazzling prize, now felt heavy with invisible blood. In the aftermath, you worked tirelessly to consolidate your gains. You nurtured your sons, ensuring they received the finest education not just in military tactics and statecraft, but also in the delicate arts of court intrigue and political maneuvering. You continued to expand your network of loyalists within the palace, elevating those who had proven their unwavering allegiance during the tumultuous period surrounding Mustafa's fall. The Grand Vizier, now a figure handpicked by the Sultan and implicitly approved by you, was a loyal if cautious ally, understanding the precarious balance of power. The threads of your influence now stretched into every corner of the imperial administration, unseen but undeniably present.
Yet the ghost of Mustafa lingered. You saw it in the Sultan's haunted eyes, in the deep lines etched on his face, lines that seemed to deepen after that fateful night. He never spoke of it, but the weight of his decision was a palpable presence between you, a silent chasm. You too carried the burden, a constant companion in the quiet of your thoughts.
Sometimes a chilling question would surface, a serpent in your mind. Would your sons, for whom you had sacrificed so much, one day be forced to make similar, agonizing choices? Would the cycle of power, once tasted, demand its inevitable bloody tribute from them too? You often sought solace in the palace gardens, where the vibrant colors of the tulips and roses seemed to mock the darkness within the palace walls. The fragrant air, usually a comfort, now seemed to carry the faint scent of fear and memory. Yet even in these moments of introspection, your resolve remained unyielding. You had crossed a line, yes, but you had done so for the sake of your lineage, for the continuation of your legacy. You had ensured your children's survival in a world that offered no quarter, no mercy. You were a lioness protecting her cubs, and the empire was your dangerous, beautiful savanna. The world might judge you, might whisper tales of your ruthlessness, but in the echoing chambers of your own conscience you found a grim justification. You had defied fate, overcome insurmountable odds, and carved out a destiny that was entirely your own. The Ottoman Harem, once a prison, was now your stage, and you, Hurrem Sultan, the formidable architect of its future, were ready to face whatever new challenges the next chapter of this extraordinary journey would bring. Your legacy, forged in fire and shadow, was now inextricably bound to the very fabric of the empire, a story of survival and triumph that would resonate through centuries.
The imperial palace, usually a symphony of hushed activity and distant calls, suddenly grew heavy, thick with a silence more profound than any battle's aftermath. A pall of disbelief, cold and inescapable, settled over the opulent chambers, creeping into every ornate corner. In 1558, a whisper, as delicate yet as devastating as a single falling petal, spread from room to room, reaching the Grand Vizier, then the Janissary commanders, and finally, with agonizing slowness, the heart of the empire itself. You, Hurrem Sultan, were gone. The vibrant light that had so long illuminated the Sultan's world, that had reshaped the very fabric of the harem, had inexplicably, irrevocably extinguished. Sultan Suleiman, the magnificent monarch who had once bent the world to his will, the conqueror whose name struck fear into distant lands, now knelt, utterly undone before the cold, silent effigy of a single woman. He was like a colossal ancient tree, felled by an unseen storm, its mightiest branches rendered helpless, its last brilliant leaf fallen, leaving a profound void in the landscape it once dominated. His grief was not merely personal. It was an earthquake, shaking the very foundations of his formidable spirit, leaving a void that echoed with the weight of an entire era. The vibrant tapestry of his reign, once so richly colored, now held a gaping, sorrowful hole. Your departure in 1558 left Sultan Suleiman, the formidable ruler who had relentlessly conquered vast swaths of the known world, utterly prostrated by your insurmountable loss. The void you left was immeasurable, not only in the depths of his aching heart, but also in the very annals of harem history. A palpable silence where once there had been fierce vibrancy. Yet your legacy, meticulously woven thread by thread, endured. It lived on, more vivid and impactful than ever before,
a golden thread woven through the very tapestry of the empire, too strong to ever unravel. The streets of Constantinople, normally a vibrant symphony of bustling markets and boisterous calls, now descended into a solemn, heavy silence. Only the measured, mournful cadence of the funeral procession broke the stillness. Thousands of people, from the humblest beggars to the most esteemed scholars, lined the ancient thoroughfares, their faces etched with undisguised shock and profound regret. They wept not merely for an empress, but for a living legend, a woman who, against all odds, altered the course of their very destiny. In the days that followed, Sultan Suleiman became a shadow of his former formidable self. It was whispered that he spent countless hours cloistered in your former chambers, his fingers tracing the contours of objects you had touched, as if desperately trying to cling to a warmth that had irrevocably faded. Imperial council meetings became heavy, drawn-out affairs. His eyes, once sharp and decisive, would often drift, lost in the vast expanse of nothingness, as if desperately searching for a light that had forever extinguished. His grief, a silent, raging storm, consumed him, transforming the magnificent sultan into a haunted echo of his former glory, a testament to your irreplicable influence. In the deep, cold recesses of her own isolated corridors, Mahidevran received the news of your passing. It was said that a dry, brittle smile briefly touched her lips, a fleeting taste of vindictive satisfaction. But then her eyes, long hollowed by her own sorrows, would gaze blankly into the void, as if she too stood before an invisible grave, facing the stark reality of her own isolated existence. Her bitter resentment, once fiercely directed at you, now had no tangible object to cling to. It merely remained, a heavy, silent burden within her. The ghost of her past, now mingled with the phantom of your triumph, left her adrift in a sea of complex, unresolved emotions. Meanwhile, in the separate palace assigned to him, Prince Selim, the one destined to inherit the vast empire, felt the immense weight of the future crown settle upon his brow. It was not merely the staggering burden of a sprawling empire. It was the formidable weight of a legacy, a treacherous path meticulously forged by his mother with extraordinary intellect and, at times, with what felt like the very essence of her soul. He understood with chilling clarity that from this moment forward, every single decision he made, every decree he issued would be scrutinized, judged, and forever illuminated by the dazzling yet often challenging light that his mother had so fiercely ignited. Her absence was a void, but her influence, a powerful current, continued to steer his very being, a constant, unspoken guide.
It was you, with your audacious spirit and unparalleled strategic mind, who had unequivocally paved the way for an entirely new era within the Ottoman Empire, the formidable Sultanate of Women. The generations of powerful valide sultans, queen mothers, who followed in your footsteps, formidable figures such as Nurbanu, mother of the future Sultan Selim II, and most notably the legendary Qasem Sultan, would seize and wield power that in many respects surpassed even your own. They would not merely subtly influence affairs of state. They would directly govern the empire during critical periods when sultans were either too young to rule effectively or too weak to exert genuine authority. Nurbanu,
the shrewd mother of Sultan Selim II, would often sit in her secret chambers, her sharp eyes meticulously poring over intelligence reports, her fingers instinctively clenching coded letters. She had learned from you, not through direct instruction, but through the undeniable example of your power, that true influence resided in subtlety, in the meticulous manipulation of unseen threads within the intricate tapestry of court politics. Qasem Sultan, many decades later, would elevate this influence to an unprecedented zenith, effectively ruling the empire for years, a living, breathing testament to the powerful seeds you had so courageously sown. Each of their decisions, every seemingly minor, silent intervention, was a faint whisper from the past, a living echo of the legacy of a woman who had dared to shatter every convention. The harem, once widely perceived as an enigmatic gilded cage, a place of veiled secrets and hidden rivalries, had now been irrevocably transformed. It had blossomed into an unassailable center of power, a formidable political hub that no one, not even the most seasoned Grand Vizier, could dare to underestimate. Within its luxurious yet secretive rooms, these extraordinary women, though they never directly wielded a sword on the battlefield, skillfully manipulated the very destiny of a magnificent empire through their sharp intellect, unparalleled cunning, and remarkable diplomacy. The harem was no longer a gilded cage. It had become a golden bridge, connecting the most profound personal aspirations with the vast and intricate destiny of an entire empire, a testament to the unyielding power of the female spirit.
You had definitively proven that women did not need to step on to the bloody battlefields, clad in armor, to wield immense power. They could expertly orchestrate events, subtly controlling the reins of empire from the profound shadows, from the opulent yet intensely secretive rooms of the harem. These formidable women were not merely empresses or queen mothers. They were the silent architects of an empire, meticulously shaping its very future with the precise prick of a needle, the gentle yet potent whisper into a sultan's ear, and a series of astonishingly bold, often audacious decisions that sent ripples through every level of society. Their influence, a powerful undercurrent, reshaped the political landscape with invisible force, building an empire not of stone, but of will. Your enduring legacy was not simply the ascension of your own sons to the imperial throne, although that was a monumental achievement in itself. More profoundly, it was the seismic shift in perception regarding the role and potential of women within the Ottoman court. You had courageously sown the seeds for a new generation of powerful, resilient women, individuals who dared to defiantly challenge centuries-old limitations and ingrained prejudices. Your story, a beacon of human tenacity, resonates powerfully through the centuries, a timeless reminder that even in the most unforgiving and restrictive environments, the indomitable human will can not only survive, but can also triumph, rising to create truly extraordinary and transformative achievements. Your memory, a radiant star, continues to guide those who seek to redefine the boundaries of possibility, echoing through the grand halls of history as a perpetual testament to fierce, unyielding spirit. You had not just won a personal battle for power. You had meticulously engineered a new path for all the women who would follow. The very walls of the harem, once a formidable symbol of gilded confinement, now seemed to echo with laughter, whispered commands, and profound decisions that forever shaped the fate of an empire. This was the reign of the women, an era born from your iron will and extraordinary intellect. Even in death, you continued to rule, not through a physical crown, but through your indelible legacy, through the undeniable truth that one woman, armed with nothing but her cunning and courage, could, indeed, change the world, leaving an eternal mark on history.
The ancient stones of Topkapi Palace, silent witnesses to centuries of ambition and despair, sometimes seem to hum with a faint, resonant echo. If you listen closely, beyond the rustle of modern life, you might catch it. The ghost of a whispered command, the delicate chime of a golden anklet, the chilling whisper of a secret shared in the dark. These are the spectral remnants of a world once vibrant with life, a world where women, confined yet indomitable, forged empires from the shadows. The very air, now seemingly tranquil, once crackled with the raw energy of ambition, a silent thunderclap of wills clashing in gilded chambers. You've walked these phantom halls with me, felt the weight of their gaze, and navigated their treacherous currents. Now, as our journey nears its end, let's reflect on the enduring power of those who dared to bloom in a gilded cage, leaving an indelible mark on history itself. The saga of the Ottoman Harem and the formidable women who inhabited it stands as a breathtaking testament to the astonishing resilience of the human spirit, particularly the female spirit, even when confronted with the most unyielding and oppressive circumstances. They defied ancient strictures and boldly carved out their own destinies, transforming what was intended as a secluded, forbidden space into a dramatic and intensely thrilling stage of power, where every single breath drawn felt like a precarious skirmish. They were, in essence, exotic, vibrant flowers blooming defiantly within a glass cage, yet their tenacious roots, unseen, pierced through solid rock, reaching out to grasp the world beyond, leaving an indelible mark that time itself could not erode. Their legacy, an intricate tapestry woven from courage and cunning, remains vividly alive, a perpetual whisper carried on the winds of history.
Despite the profound tragedies that unfolded within those hallowed walls, the ruthless intrigues, and the heartbreaking personal sacrifices, this is, above all, a narrative about unyielding wills, remarkably sharp intellects, and hearts that yearned, with an almost desperate ferocity, to assert their very existence. Power, you see, was never merely about wielding a gleaming sword or commanding vast armies. It was profoundly about intellect, the unparalleled grace of cunning diplomacy, and an extraordinary capacity for adaptation. As dusk gently descends upon Istanbul, and the flickering golden lamplights begin to softly illuminate the ancient weathered stone walls of Topkapi Palace, can you hear it? The faint, ethereal echoes of whispered secrets, the light crystalline laughter that once filled those halls, and even the bitter, salty tears of those magnificent women who meticulously wove the richly colored, intricate tapestry of the harem's storied history. Their voices, though silent now, resonate through the ages, a chorus of defiance and ambition. You have been a privileged witness,
allowed to feel the texture of their lives, and to intimately comprehend a profound fragment of that extraordinary world. These stories are far more than mere dry, dusty historical accounts. They are living whispers from the distant past, passionately recounting the immense, often untapped power that resides within every human being, and the astonishing capacity to triumph over even the most overwhelming adversities. Though the relentless river of time continues its ceaseless flow, those ancient walls still stand, proud and unyielding, serving as silent, immutable witnesses to an eternal truth. The indomitable human spirit, even when confined within the most opulent of gilded cages, possesses the innate ability to soar, to battle fiercely for its dreams, and to ultimately achieve the most extraordinary and unforgettable feats. Their tales, a vibrant echo from the past, whisper through the centuries, a timeless testament to the astonishing capacity of the human spirit, reminding us that transformation is always possible. The harem, once seen solely as a place of opulent confinement, transformed into a vibrant nexus of influence, a golden bridge connecting the inner sanctum to the very pulse of the empire. It was a testament to the fact that women did not need to step onto the bloody battlefields, clad in armor, to wield immense power. They expertly orchestrated events, subtly controlling the reins of empire from the profound shadows, from the opulent yet intensely secretive rooms. These formidable women were not merely empresses or queen mothers. They were the silent architects of an empire, meticulously shaping its very future with the precise prick of a needle, the gentle yet potent whisper into a sultan's ear, and a series of astonishingly bold, often audacious decisions that sent ripples through every level of society. Their influence, a powerful undercurrent, reshaped the political landscape with invisible force, building an empire not of stone, but of will. Your enduring legacy, Hurrem Sultan, was not simply the ascension of your own sons to the imperial throne, although that was a monumental achievement in itself. More profoundly, it was the seismic shift in perception regarding the role and potential of women within the Ottoman court. You had courageously sown the seeds for a new generation of powerful, resilient women, individuals who dared to defiantly challenge centuries-old limitations and ingrained prejudices. Your story, a beacon of human tenacity, resonates powerfully through the centuries. You, having walked these very halls, now know that even in the most restrictive environments, the indomitable human will can not only survive, but triumph, leaving behind a legacy that transcends time. And so, my friend, as we close the final chapter of this epic journey, remember that the echoes from the ancient walls of the harem will forever remind us of an eternal truth. True power lies not merely on a throne, but in the indomitable, unyielding spirit of humanity itself. Let these potent stories gently lull you into a reflective sleep, imbued with an unwavering belief that even within the deepest shadows, the radiant light of human will and unwavering hope will always shine, a beacon against the encroaching darkness. You have lived through an incredible journey. Thank you for joining us on this epic journey through the Ottoman Harem, where the power and resilience of women shaped an entire empire. We hope these stories have offered you not only knowledge, but also profound emotions. If you enjoyed this historical adventure, don't hesitate to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and leave a comment sharing your thoughts. We look forward to seeing you on our next historical exploration.